That kind of like gratitude makes me feel like I did something meaningful for the neighborhood. And the miracles can happen repeatedly, so I hope that kind of miracle, it happens again. My guests go somewhere themselves and then they find somebody who speaks some English and they're very happy to spend time together. I love their curiosity. They ask so many questions. Every time I bring my guests to somewhere, to some activities, I always learn something new because my guests ask something that are unexpected.
Thanks for checking in. This is the Japan Travel Pros podcast. Each week, we bring you stories and fresh perspectives about the people and places that make Japan so interesting. Along the way, you'll hear practical advice for planning your own trip. In this episode, we continue our conversation with Rise-san from Rise's house in Nishio, Japan. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, we recommend starting there. That's where Rise-san shares the story behind Rise's house and how some serendipitous experiences helped shape a vision for welcoming visitors to his hometown. In this second half, we shift our focus to the guest house itself, the people who make Nishio special, and an idea that stayed with me long after we finished recording, the concept of becoming a forever local. Let's jump back into our conversation with Rise-san.
All the 3 rooms have different types of tatami. The tatami on the first floor, the living room, it's made of Japanese paper with resin, so that's where people have meals. So I want to keep it like waterproof. The second room, the tea room, the tatami is very special, one of the best ones. Actually, it was donated by a local tatami company who support Rise's house. So when I did crowdfunding, they found me through an Instagram and I thought initially they want me to buy tatami, but their intention was to let people, like they wanted people to enjoy the real, like really, really good tatami. They were generous enough to donate them. So I love them. The smell, it's so different. The softness, it's different. And the third floor, it's the bedroom. It's also different. It's called no makeup tatami. No makeup because usually when they make tatami, they use mud to make it like uniform white color. Also, like by using mud, the drying process cut down by like 20% or something. But the tatami on the second floor doesn't have any mud. So it's nice for your lungs because nothing comes out when you step on it. So it's a bedroom. So I wanted to keep it healthy, like extra healthy, I should say. Each thing's like Rise's house is not something very like luxurious or anything, but it's got a lot of stories, like a lot of ideas and people involved.
When somebody stays at Rise's house, you're really staying. Not only are you staying at Rise's house and having Rise-san as the host, but experiencing not just the features of what a traditional Japanese house would have, but the stories behind it are all, I'm going to throw in a dad joke here. The stories, just as the tatami room shows, the stories are all interwoven.
So many things are made locally. And for example, the the living room, I mean, if you open the tatami in the living room, there's like tons of charcoal underneath. The purpose of it is to absorb smell and humidity. And the reason why we have it is because the building in front of us is a charcoal shop run by an 85-year-old lady. Yeah, when she was younger, like she told me that she placed those charcoal at my house, like under my house. And yeah, like you feel connections. She's recently kind of unwell, but when she's fine, I introduce my guests to the lady and then my guests go there like a few times a week or almost every day. They just go there to have a chat with the grandma. There is some language barrier, but still like the grandma tries to offer like sweets and tea and all the time. She's just happy to see like new people every week. Her family also like thanked me because she had a lot of fun and she didn't expect that she would be able to meet like people from all over the world at her house. Yeah, that kind of like gratitude makes me feel like I did something meaningful for the neighborhood.
You absolutely have done something meaningful. I suspect, Rise-san, it's not meaningful only for the neighborhood, but I'm going to go 2 steps further and say it's meaningful for Nishio as a city And it's a meaningful bridge. It's a meaningful connection between Japan and the world. It's easy to say, well, look, Japan is experiencing a record travel boom, so the world is coming to Japan and we don't need those things. I think it's quite the opposite. In fact, if anything, we need it more and more, because going back to the beginning when we said people are having fewer and fewer human interactions in a time when travel is increasing, but the human level of travel seems to be decreasing. So what you're doing is actually offering this bridge, this connection across cultures, and it's evident. The proof is that you've maintained relationships. People still keep in touch with you. People come back to stay with you again. You go to stay with them. You keep in touch on holidays and birthdays, and you've extended that to your community as well.
Thank you so much for saying that. There have been a few times the mayor of Nishio City visited Rise's house, and then he had fun with my guests too in the tea room. And he was really happy that I started it. He was really happy the fact that I came back to my hometown and I started like this kind of unique like accommodation. He always like told me to open the second one. I finally found the property, a really nice one. So I will actually open the second one in January next year.
That was going to be one of my questions.
Thank you. That happened miraculously because again, like I also went to the charcoal shop almost every day. That's where I got to know many local people, like other neighbors too. And there's a 84-year-old lady with gray hair. She's very, very sweet. I saw her on the street, so I talked to her like just casually, like once, and then she told me like, "Oh, actually, this house became vacant. So would you be interested?" So she introduced me to the house owner, and then they agreed with my idea. And I want to generalize this thing, but in Japan there are like 9 million vacant houses, like Akiya, and Nishio City also has 8,000. When people say Akiya, like people usually think of those like abundant houses, but they're not like necessarily abundant. They're taken care of very well, but it's just that there's no people to use it. The house owner, like they suggested that I should open the second one, and I really like the building. It's just right across the street from Rise's house. So yeah, I still want to keep it very like homey. That's what's going on right now.
So is it going to be like Hoshino Resorts, where Rise's house number 2 is going to have its own features, some commonalities, but some differences as well?
That's a wonderful question. I'm still seriously thinking about it. It's got very similar feeling. The stories behind the house is quite different. I will make the most out of those uniqueness to the building. For example, the second house belonged to a mochi shop owner. Like the mochi shop, it was around for 100 years. The business was closed, but I still see I still see boxes with like mochi. How to say that? I can see the mochi. Like it's not there, but I can see like what they did or how they did it. I talked with the owner. She told me like what it was like for 50 years. Yeah, those kind of things, I would be very happy to share them with my guests. I don't think I'll make it as big as Hoshino Resorts. I want to keep it very like local and friendly. So actually, I hesitated to open the second one because I want to be focused on one family. But at the same time, especially after the Only in Japan video, like I had to reject many requests because if one guest is staying at my place, other guests cannot stay there, right? Like it's only for one family at a time. I was thinking about the balance. So, but at least maybe running 2 accommodations can be possible. So I will give it a shot.
Speaking of just running a business, but also the concept of having an Akiya, and what's the reason behind why are these homes vacant? And in Nishio, for example, is Nishio pretty typical for Japan in terms of the population is coming down? It's certainly an aging population. And what happens typically in Japan is that there comes to a tipping point where more and more people leave the town, leave the city, they go to the big city, maybe they go to Nagoya to work or to Tokyo to work. And so you mentioned that the mayor is very proud and very happy that you came back to Nishio and that you're doing this.
Usually when people go to university, let's say in a bigger city like Nagoya or Tokyo, they would never come back because they have many jobs, more lucrative jobs, let's say, out there. They don't usually come back. There must be some reason to come back. And for me, it was running accommodations. But for others, it's usually hard to find reasons to come back unless they're very they feel attached to their hometown. The population is shrinking, and we have more and more vacant houses. Like one reason why we have more and more vacant houses is the shrinking population, but also because we have earthquakes. In some other countries, maybe like old houses can be more valuable, but in Japan, like let's say 30-year-old, 40-year-old buildings, like they require some renovation. So yeah, those things like cost a lot too, and then they just keep the house without living there. Lately, I think it was last year, the government changed the law. So now like more people started demolishing the house, like vacant houses, because they would have to pay like more property tax than before if they don't take care of it. So what's happening like quite recently is in my neighborhood is that more and more old houses were being demolished, like 100-year-old like tea ceremony utensil shops or like camera shops. Like many of them have been demolished like this year. I started seeing the change, so it's really sad. In a way, it's unavoidable, but I want to keep it slow. If possible, I would like to like turn them into like a restaurant or a shop. And I collaborate with like many people in my neighborhood. There's some like architectural office. We try to keep old buildings and turn them into something we can go. That's what's been going on.
That presents both, as you said, something that's sad and unfortunate, but also presents opportunity, right?
That's right. So demolishing it's easy, but once you demolish a 100-year-old building, it will never come back. And people know it's valuable. It's just that like when there's no people who want to use it, there is no other way. So the city like tries to attract businesses to the city. Those individual restaurants or like shops, they introduce people to the properties like Akia. And it's been quite successful so far. I discussed a lot with the city, but I think the same thing will keep happening in many places in Japan. I have been telling young people, like other people, to do something if they want to. Like, sometimes the city or the like local schools, they ask me to give a talk at their school. This year, I will give a talk at the junior high school that I graduated from, in front of like 1,000 students. But I will definitely talk about they should do something they really want to.
For an American, for example, it's a big thing to be independent and doing your own thing. That's that's in our DNA or something like that. And generalizing it in Japanese culture, certainly until now, and maybe it's starting to change, but certainly until now, risk is seen as not a great thing. But on the other hand, Issei-san, when we turn it around and you're saying, okay, I'm willing to take this risk for myself, but in the process, I can help my hometown and I can help my community. All of a sudden, it sounds like maybe more people are buying into this.
Absolutely. As long as like people appreciate your intention, like a lot of people try to support you. For example, when I did crowdfunding, like a lot of people, alumni of my university or high school, or my friends from kindergarten, or their moms or their dads, or like the locals have never seen me, but they found me on the newspaper or TV. And if they agree with our idea, like they would support us. So I've been telling people, like if they want to do something, like they say it loud. I mean, that's something many Japanese people are not good at. I know Americans on average are very good at this kind of thing, and I completely agree with it. But in that sense, like being expressive in Japan, it can be very advantageous. So yeah, I felt it that way.
Traditionally in Japan, the phrase is that the nail that sticks up gets hammered down. So if you're taking a risk, it doesn't feel great. But if you know what you're doing and you have a plan and you have a community involved in it, maybe it's going to go better.
Right. That's the phrase I was looking for. And I wanted to mention like Hofstede Index. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but there's I think the study was conducted like many years ago, but basically it features the differences of like personality depending on the country. And the Japanese people on average are the very like risk averse, and that is statistically true, like risk averse and also collectivism. So yeah, we basically try not to take much risk, and we just follow what others do. Usually, there are always some exceptions, but nowadays, like it started changing. like I've seen some change. So I hope like the change will be more, how's it, visible in the future, and more people will come back to my hometown. I don't want people to stay just in Tokyo. I know there are so many jobs in Tokyo, but
yeah, that cultural dimensions theory and the different degrees of following authority versus independence, risk versus conservative, the communication style. What's happening? And I like that you brought it back full circle to saying, okay, we know that there's a challenge in Japan with regard to travel and tourism, for example, that people will say, oh, there's over tourism in Japan. There's over tourism in like little pieces of Tokyo and little piece of Kyoto and a little bit of Osaka. Outside of that, there is not over tourism. Quite the opposite. A city like Nishio and many communities in Japan would love to have people come and visit and do that. And the challenge is people keep going back to the same places and doing the same things. And the government knows that. The JNTO knows what's going on. If you look at their social media, for example, the Visit Japan, they're trying to get people to go to different places in Japan. But rule number one we hear with people is like, well, look, if the Shinkansen doesn't go there, I'm not sure I want to go there. It's like, okay, but what if you just did? Because here we're talking about risk. And here we're saying, gosh, well, here are these, Americans as a culture, we love to take risks. What's happening in travel? We're not taking risks. We keep going to the same places and doing the same things. Why are we doing this? Why aren't we being true to ourselves? What's going on?
Yeah, I completely agree with what you just said. Yeah. I mean, it's not even the risk. Like maybe in some countries, if you go somewhere like in the middle of nowhere, maybe you won't be safe. But in Japan, all the places are safe. So at least like there's no risk for your life and safety. People would be willing to help you. Although even if there is some language barrier, like if you use Google translation, or at least like they would do their best to help you. So yeah, I think just go outside the comfort zone where there is no like translated menu, and they'll be curious, and then you definitely have like a wonderful ichigo ichie. Like you definitely meet like wonderful people there.
Yeah, you're gonna have that. Like there's a chance if you're in Tokyo or Kyoto, for example, if you wander into a local area, they're already sick of tourists. Very much the opposite experience coming to a city like Nishio. They're like, hey, come on in. We'd love to have a conversation with you. And if they know you're with Rise-san, for example, and you're there, you're the translator, and you're that bridge again between the cultures.
The same kind of things have happened many times. Like we go to an izakaya. There is one called Asako, and then that's where I brought John too. But we go there, and then we met some businessmen, and then they were so drunk that they took us to like different place, and then they usually offer us a lot of drinks. And so yeah, it happens to my guests so many times. So I completely agree that going to the local places can open a completely like different, it can be really worth it. So give it a shot.
Absolutely. And like you said, there's not a lot of risks. We have clients sometimes, and I love it when they say this. There was a gentleman the other day said, Ari, I want to be uncomfortable. He said that. He's like, I want to experience discomfort. I'm like, I think we can help you do that. And in Japan, it's still going to be a very controlled situation. Everything's pretty safe. Crime is not zero, but yeah, relative to the US where I'm from, crime in Japan is almost zero. Some of our listeners might be familiar with Rick Steves. He is a TV host. He is a guidebook author, and his focus is Europe. And his big thing is experience Europe like a local. And he uses the phrase temporary local. We founded Japan Travel Pros, and we're doing this podcast, and we're doing other things to help people have some slice of that, to be a temporary local to the extent possible. And what I think you're doing, Rise-san, is you're pushing that out further. And what you're doing in your hometown, in Nishio City, Rise-san, at Rise's house, and in your community is you're bringing that wall down quickly, and you're enabling your guests, many of whom are becoming your friends, you're enabling them to experience Japan as a temporary local.
Yeah, that's a wonderful way to put it, like temporary local. Yeah. And I want them to be like forever local. I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah, I want them to come back here. That's right. Yeah, it wouldn't be risky to go to those places that are unknown. For example, like yesterday, my guests from Chicago, they went to a cafe that are very, very local. The shop, the cafe owner, like talked to them, and they had a wonderful time there. It was run by like an 80-year-old like lady, but they are very curious where they are from, and then they talk to them. There's language barrier, but still like they told me that there was another customer who speaks some English, and then the person was very happy to help them communicate. So that kind of things happen. Yeah, I've heard like the similar things happening many times in my city. Like my guests go somewhere themselves, and then they find somebody who speaks some English, and they're very happy to come like spend time together. So yeah, I hope that kind of miracle it can happens again. So yeah, I hope you will enjoy that kind of fun.
I like that word. It's you've tied in miracle with Ichigo Ichie, because in that one moment, in that temporary short span of time, it is a miracle, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is very miracle. Yeah, and the miracles can happen repeatedly. So
I hope we never lose touch with that, though. It's something I've seen over time, is that especially as we travel more and as the world becomes a smaller place, sometimes, and I'm as guilty of this as anybody, sometimes we lose touch with that inner child. Again, I go back to the 8-year-old inside my brain here, but we lose touch with that inner child and that curiosity, because curiosity is what fuels travel. And you see that with your guests all the time, right? Their curiosity is what's brought them to you and brought them to Nishio.
that's right. And I love their curiosity. They ask so many questions. So that's why every time I bring my guests to somewhere, like to some activities, I always learn something new because my guests ask something that are unexpected. And those curiosity makes locals very happy too, because, like you'd be very happy if people ask you many questions about your life, about what you do, and you will feel like proud of what you do. So like being curious just makes people happy.
Got a Japan trip on the radar? You might have noticed something. There's no shortage of Japan-related content out there, this podcast included, but the hard part is knowing what actually matters for your trip. Should you stay here or there, add another city or slow down, follow the popular advice, or ignore it altogether? Book the hotel everyone recommends, or the one that actually fits what you want. That's where a lot of folks turn to Japan Travel Pros. We help you sort through the choices, make better decisions, and feel more confident before you touch down in Tokyo or land in Osaka. Go to japantravelpros.com/plan to schedule a consultation. You mentioned the locals that you encounter and that your guests encounter. And of course, this is Japan, so it's an aging society. But there's so many great things about older people, but one of the things I love is that even in Japan, or especially in Japan, they don't have much of a filter. They get to a point, it's somewhere in the late 60s or 70s, and the filter goes and they stop giving, there's no more F's given about it. And there's a woman at our gym. We think she's in her mid 80s. She's there before us. When I leave, she's still there. She's on the treadmill. She's doing different things. God bless her. And she has no filter. She'll ask me questions. Okay, sometimes she asks me the same questions because she is in her mid 80s, but even so, no filter, and the curiosity is there, and that gets rewarded. That goes both ways, right?
Absolutely. What's happening all the time is that I told you that there was a 84-year-old lady who introduced me to the second Reese's house. She doesn't have any idea of language barrier. So they just keep talking to my guests in Japanese. Even if they they don't understand anything, they just keep talking. And that is true for many old ladies in my hometown, but it's still fun. And my guests are very happy that they're welcoming. At least like she welcomes my guests to their house, like her house, and they offer some tea. And the kind of openness is like true for many Japanese elderly people.
It is. And even if your guests don't speak Japanese and she's speaking in Japanese, non-verbally, the warmth comes through, the openness comes through, the curiosity comes through, and it's exchanged both ways, isn't it?
That is so true. A lot of my guests have like a baby or a kid. So my many locals love talking to my guests with a kid. And so yeah, babies, they get really, really popular when they are here. And now I have a guest with a 2-year-old girl who is very friendly. So, and she made a friend with a nice dog like Sarah, like a 7-year-old flat-coated retriever, and they meet the same dog every day. So, like that kind of things, those interactions, is a priceless.
It's priceless, and there it is again. It's that temporary local. But I also like how you push back on when I said temporary. You said, well, it's temporary in the sense that they're here now temporarily in this moment in this Ichigo Ichie, but also those memories are going to last forever, and you can be a forever local.
Like you go back to your hometown like regularly to see your friends or family, right? So in the same way, like I want people to come back to my hometown to see the people that they know, like their friend, to see their friends or grandmas or the dog. So I think the people is something that makes Nishio special. And I don't want to ruin the fun of it.
I want to ask you a last question.
Yeah.
To wrap it up here. And please come back another time. Hey, we want to have you back again, and we can talk more if you're willing to. And I've been asking this question to our guests in different ways. So for somebody who's right now listening to this podcast, you say, son, what do you say to somebody who's planning their trip? It's their first trip to Japan, or maybe it's their return trip to Japan. What would your advice be to the traveler to Japan?
Talk to strangers. Japanese people look serious, or they might not look friendly, but if you talk to them, they would be very happy to help you, or they might want to be your friends, and they can be your friends. And then, so that kind of thing can happen. So maybe in a big city, it would be harder, but still, like if you need some help or if you want to make friends, just talk to anybody. Like and then probably they'll give you like recommendations about like the restaurants or the place to visit or what to see, or maybe they might accommodate you in the future. So those kind of miracles happens through those interactions. So just talk to people.
That's right. And you mentioned big cities, and on our recent episode, our friend Yuki-kun, he was on and he talked about, so he's a Tokyo local now. And one of his favorite things to do, and what he encouraged people to do, is go to a place, get out of the tourist circuit, and go to a place like Shimbashi, which is right next to, it's near Ginza, which is touristy, but already Shimbashi, it's not. Or go to Gotanda, or go to these, the smaller places in Tokyo. Just go to an izakaya, and much as you said, son, just talk to people. And yeah, maybe the person next to you doesn't say anything, but maybe the other person does, and all of a sudden you're sharing, especially if there's drinks involved. It turns out, as we mentioned, if there's sake or beer or something else involved, there's a pretty good chance that those people will start to talk to you, and next thing you know, you got a friend, and they're telling you where to go and what to do, and things that you never would have imagined.
Right, absolutely. So Japanese, again, on average, Japanese people are very shy. It takes a lot of courage for us to talk to strangers. For let's say American people, I know it's not the hardest thing to do. So they might be, for example, like if there is some Japanese people in izakaya, maybe they want to talk to you, but they are just hesitate to talk to you. So if you take the first step, if you talk to them, they would be very happy to talk to you back. And I think the conversation you have with the person, they would keep talking about it. Like after they go home, the next day they talk about their time that they spend with you. Like they share it with their colleagues or those. So that happens all the time. So, but like just talking to them, it gives them like special time. So it doesn't bother them usually, and usually makes them happier. So yeah, that's what I would say.
It goes back to Ichigo Ichie. It's like in that one moment, you just made someone's day, because they probably did want to talk to you. They probably are sitting there curious about who is this person, or who is this couple, or who is this family here? What do they do? Where are they from? Well, I could never ask. Oh, I'm afraid my English is not good enough, or whatever. But if that person starts the conversation, if you the listener, if you start that conversation, the other person might say, oh, they'll be surprised at first a little bit, but they'll say, well, yes, and then the floodgates open after a while, especially, again, if there are beverages involved. Not always. It doesn't have to be, but yeah.
Yeah. So what might be interesting for you is that like everyone in Japan learns English at school, like probably now from third grade, but we learn it until high school at least. And at least everybody is familiar with English letters, or like everybody's good at reading it. But maybe talking, it just takes more courage for us. Like back to those differences about like depending on the country, we don't want to take risk we don't want to make any mistakes when we speak English. So that's that kind of mentality is there. So once you talk to them, they might be surprisingly good at English. It can happen. So just give it a shot.
That's right. And I'm just curious, how have you helped your guests in terms of maybe before they come or while they're here, learning a few words and a few phrases in Japanese that also bring those walls down and kind of diffuse the situation as well?
I share like some simple Japanese while they are here. For example, when I had lunch with my like American guests yesterday, I told them what to say before and after meals, like itadakimasu and gochisousama and oishii and konnichiwa. They usually know it, but like gochisousama, that's something you need to learn it, right? Yeah, and then they can be. I mean, that can make people happy. You can look even more. You can be even more respectful by saying that. I share those like polite words usually. Yeah, matane. That's very short and easy to use. Sometimes like there are guests who learn some Japanese and they have a bunch of opportunities to try their Japanese. So yeah, going to those local places, it will definitely improve your Japanese.
It does. And so I'm curious if you've then experienced or witnessed a situation where you've seen your guests coming into a shop or a restaurant or somewhere local in Nishio and talking to somebody and saying a few words in Japanese, and it's so appreciated, right? Like the person is either surprised, like, oh my gosh, thank you. And of course they always say, Nihongo Jozu desu ne. It's like, yeah, 5 words, but okay, sure.
Yeah, I mean, that happens all the time. Yeah, like everybody is so surprised when they say like gochisousama or oishikatta. That's those simple phrases can make everybody happy. You don't have to learn like grammars or anything. Just learn the basic phrases that are enough to start with. That's highly appreciated. Not only in Nishio City, but also like all over Japan. People don't expect you to speak some Japanese. So the expectations are very low. People understand that like international people don't usually need to learn Japanese. So the simple ones can make them happy.
The bar is very low. Japanese people don't expect you to speak Japanese. They don't expect you to bow. They don't expect you to be polite. They don't expect much. And so anything that you do, any little thing that you do to participate in the culture here, including language, but not limited to only the language, any effort that you make is going to be rewarded.
That is so true. And yeah, probably the only people who might speak to you in Japanese all the time are those 80-year-old grandma. But except them, everybody is very understand that you don't speak Japanese. And what's surprising is that they might even keep apologizing for their poor English. Like that's what they say. Oh, I learned it in school, but I don't speak English. But in English, they say it in English, but it's the ironic part. But yeah, those small things will be definitely rewarded.
Thanks again to Rise-san for joining us and for sharing your story. Really appreciate it. You know, one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation is that I love meeting people who are building bridges between Japan and the rest of the world. Now, each person does it a little bit differently, of course. Everyone does it in their own way. Rise-san is doing it through hospitality in Nishio, in his hometown. Other people build bridges through food, through history, through being tour guides, or by welcoming visitors into their communities. Now, I don't think Rise's house is the only place in Japan creating those kinds of experiences, but it is one that I happened to discover. I'm glad I did. I'm really glad that we reached out. Thank you so much, Rise-san, for joining us in the conversation. You're welcome back anytime. And for those of you listening, I definitely encourage you, if you're visiting Japan, check out Rise's house. You'll find the links in the show notes. And if you want to make a brief stop, great. If you want to make it a longer stop, even better. You'll experience life as a temporary local, but even better, you'll have the memories of being a forever local, and you'll have those connections. I hope this conversation encourages all of you to look beyond the checklist. When you're planning a trip to Japan, the places you visit are important, of course. Don't get me wrong. We encourage a good amount of planning, quality planning. But you know, when you think about it, travel, not just Japan, but anywhere in the world, the people you meet along the way, don't they often become the stories that you most remember all those years later? And if you enjoyed this conversation, we'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the podcast. Yeah, follow us on your podcast app of choice. And we'd really be grateful if you leave us a rating or review. It helps more people discover the show. Lots more coming soon. Got some great episodes already recorded and ready to roll out in the near future. Thanks for listening.
Safe travels.